Hi, welcome back to the recap room. In today's video, we will discuss a movie based on real-life events during World War II titled The Last Frontier. Be warned though, there are spoilers ahead. The movie starts in October 1941, when the Nazi forces advance at 200 kilometers to Moscow. It is raining hard, and the soldiers are rushing to take down enemy tanks. A soldier asks his subordinate to hand in the armor-piercing bullets and aims for the cardboard tanks before shooting. The soldiers are training as their commanding officers watch them. In the observation deck, the commander is impressed with the shooting and asks the battery commander the name of the soldier shooting. He replies that it's Junior Sergeant Sasha Lavrov. To test Lavrov's shooting skills, the commander orders for another set of tanks to be put up. Lavrov watches them carefully through his scope and concludes that all the tanks are connected by a line, so he aims for the line and manages to bring down all 3 tanks. The commander is not pleased and asks all the men to line up. He asks Lavrov how many tanks he thinks he destroyed. Lavrov replies proudly that he took down all 3 tanks, but the commander tells him that he managed to destroy 2 and not 3. He asks one of the soldiers to explain why Lavrov was not able to destroy all 3. Sergeant Shemyakin steps forward and says that the area the bullets were targeted at made the bullets ricochet, hence the tank was not destroyed.
Снаряд рикошетирует, цель не поражена.
The commander tells them that by the time they would have realized that the 3rd tank is not destroyed, it would fire and kill all of them, and that they need to be more careful with their decisions as it can cost them hundreds of lives. Lavrov catches the eye of one of the nurses, Masha, but he is warned by Shemyakin to stay away from her. Lavrov gets offended and tells him that just because he's from an orphanage doesn't mean that he doesn't deserve someone good. Shemyakin and Lavrov then agree to leave Masha alone and let her choose for herself. However, that night, Lavrov sneaks in the nurse station and finds her asleep. He replaces the pen in her hand with a flower, but quickly hides as he hears the doctor getting ready to leave. Both Masha and the doctor notice Lavrov hiding, but the doctor ignores him and leaves the clinic. Masha then goes and confronts Lavrov and scolds him and then kisses him. Lavrov happily makes his way back to his bunk and is confronted by Shemyakin,
Мы же договорились вроде.
to whom he gloats that Masha had kissed him. The two end up fighting and waking everyone up. They are reprimanded by the commanding officer and given 5 days of detention. Meanwhile, the Nazi convoy makes its way through the Warsaw Highway and is 190 kilometers away from Moscow. The lieutenant general orders Colonel Strzelbowski to send his men to the front lines until reinforcements arrive, although the colonel is hesitant since the boys have only been training for a while. However, he has no choice, or else Moscow will fall. Strzelbowski goes back to the military school and announces that the boys have been called to the front lines and they need to start preparing. Back at school, Masha is told that Lavrov is under arrest for getting into a fight. She goes to find him and he tells her to be careful before she leaves. Lavrov tries to convince Shemyakin to help him break out of prison so that he can join the infantry going to the front lines, but he declines. As Colonel Strzelbowski is briefing the commanders, he asks them about Lavrov. He orders Lieutenant Alashkan to make Lavrov go with the vanguard, whose job is to reach the Oleonsky line by nightfall to meet with Captain Storchak and his troops. Alaskan goes to retrieve both Lavrov and Shemyakin from their cells, and Lavrov immediately gets on a truck to leave with the vanguard. Masha hears about Lavrov leaving and she rushes to say goodbye, but it is too late, and she only manages to make eye contact with him before he leaves. On the sidelines, Shemyakin witnesses the whole ordeal with tears in his eyes. Lieutenant Alaskan bids goodbye to his wife and son before he leaves. On their way, they are attacked by a German plane that causes their truck to catch fire, destroying most of their ammo and killing one of the soldiers. This gives them a harsh reality check of what war is like. That night, the vanguards, led by Lieutenant Manches, stop their trucks and get out when they see civilians carrying a cart. Manches notices a foot peeking from under a cover. He tells his men to stay vigilant. At that moment, one of the civilians whistles, giving a signal to the men hiding in the forest to come out and surround them with their guns pointed toward them. As the men face off, one of them recognizes Lavrov as they were in an orphanage together. Things cool down, and the civilian tells Manches that he is Captain Storchak. He explains to them that this is the strategy they have been using to attack German forces. The next day, Storchak's troops along with the vanguards hide in the forest and they are on the lookout for German convoys. When all of a sudden, they spot one. Storchak orders his men to attack. He feels confident now that his infantry has the support of artillery. They successfully blow up some of the German tanks before they start retaliating. Lavrov goes rogue and encounters a German soldier in the forest. As the two face off, Lavrov hesitates to shoot. At that moment, Storchak comes up behind him and shoots the soldier in the head, instantly killing him. Storchak takes Lavrov to his commanding officer, who as punishment, demotes him, and he goes from being a gun layer specialist to an ammo carrier. Meanwhile, at the Alinsky frontier near the river, Colonel Strzelbotsky arrives and notices that fortifications being built by the locals are incomplete. The commander suggests that they destroy the bridge, which will halt the Germans' advancements. But he tells them that they have to keep the bridge intact for the reinforcements that will arrive with tanks. The soldiers are ordered to help the locals with the building of fortifications. All the while, the vanguards continue attacking the German troops to keep them on the Warsaw Highway. Lavrov, who had been demoted, cannot stand not shooting, so he secretly adjusts the aims of the guns, which are then used to attack the German tanks. Captain Storchak catches Lavrov adjusting the aims, but does not punish him for it and pats his back for a job well done. Elsewhere, Major General Smirnov informs Colonel Strzelbotsky that the reinforcements are going to come later than they thought, but this time, the vanguards have been fighting off the Germans for 3 days. When the Major General tells them to split up and join troops at the frontier, the next day, Masha, along with the other nurses, is on the field, treating injured soldiers, but she keeps checking to see if she finds Lavrov. On the battlefield, Lavrov aims for German troops on motorcycles and manages to blow them up, but he gets shot and passes out. When he wakes up, he's on a cart, heavily injured, and Masha is bent over him, taking care of him. Masha starts to cry and tells Lavrov that a large number of soldiers have been killed and that the casualties are way too many for them to bury and mourn. As she hugs Lavrov, Captain Storchak arrives next to them and tells Lavrov that his fiancée is a very good girl and that he should take care of her. The next day, at early dawn, as the soldiers hide in the trenches, one of the cadets hears planes and peers out of the makeshift window. He wakes everyone up and tells them that they are being attacked by the German Air Force. As the planes start dropping bombs, the Russian soldiers rush to hide as they are helpless against the Air Force. A large number of soldiers are killed as they hide. Back at the second line of defense, Alashkan and Shemyankin notice smoke from the first line of defense and suspect that bombs have been dropped on them. At the same time, the surviving commanding officers tell the troops to gather their bearings and prepare themselves for another attack by the Germans. Masha and her friend crawl through the trenches and are horrified at the sight of the dead and badly injured soldiers. A soldier notices more German infantry arriving and shouts at everyone to prepare for an attack. Another vicious battle ensues. At nightfall, Shemyankin sneaks into the medical camp where Lavrov lies injured, and the two hug, grateful to see each other alive. Lavrov fills Shemyankin on everyone that he have lost so far, and Shemyankin informs Lavrov of the 3 deadly attacks at the front line by the Germans. General Smirnov discusses with the commanders that they have lost more than half of their troops and the German infantry is simply too strong. He decides that they need to bomb the Germans to get the upper hand. He sends the commander of a missile artillery battalion to the front lines, and they decide to throw missiles at the German posts. The Germans, who are unaware of the plan, are caught off guard. And Storchak manages to capture one of the German commanders. The questioning of the commander reveals that the Germans are planning to attack Shubinka. As the fighting continues outside, the Germans attack the bridge by dropping bombs. The Russian soldiers rush to get into the trenches, but a large number get killed. Shemyankin meets with Masha to bid her goodbye as he leaves with the reinforcements for Bolshaya at Shubinka. Lavrov sees the two hugging and goes up to Shemyankin, who assures him that he is only friends with Masha and that he has known her since they were little kids, just like the German commander had told them.
Школу за одной партой. Нас так и звали все время.
The Germans attack Shubinka. The Russian soldiers try to fight them back, but are easily overwhelmed by a large number of German troops and artillery. The next day, Shemyankin returns from Shubinka as the sole survivor. The Russians prepare for another attack, while Masha begs Lavrov to stay back at the hospital, but he refuses and manages to sneak in among the soldiers who are going fighting with Shemyankin. Masha notices this, but does not say anything. The next day, the Russian soldiers get into position and wait for reinforcements. As they see tanks approaching, they start celebrating. Until Lavrov, notice the German flags on top of the tanks. Everyone quickly gets into position again. When Smirnov tells a soldier to pass along the message that they are to fall back, Lavrov, who is hiding in the trenches with the soldiers, offers to relay the message to Alishkov, who is farther away from them. Semyankin runs to the camps to check on Masha, but gets shot. As Masha rushes to treat him, knowing that he's dying, he tells her that he loves her. Lavrov shows up just when Semyankin dies. The two make their way to Alishkov pillbox. Masha positions herself as a guard, while Alishkov and Lavrov aim for 3 German tanks. They manage to take out 2, but one of the tanks is sturdier and does not explode like the other 2. Alishkov tells Lavrov to aim for the barrel of the tank. While guarding, Masha gets shot in the arm and is unable to throw out the grenade that lands in the pillbox. Just when Lavrov takes the shot, blowing up the tanks, Alishkov glances at a picture of his family and Lavrov shares a look at Masha before the grenade goes off, killing all 3 of them. The deaths of all the soldiers mark a changing point in the war. And that was it for the recap, guys. Make sure to like and subscribe. Don't forget to hit the notification bell as well so that you don't miss any of our uploads. Thank you for watching.